Welcome, everyone. Today, I'm going to talk about Microsoft Ignite announcement. I'm not going to cover all of them because it's too much content, but what I'm going to cover is most of the Azure stuff which are required for a company to host their application and the related stuff. I'm not going to go in detail of each of them, but just to let you know that there are certain announcements in the specific area, and there is a Ignite book of news, which is what I have used as my reference. You can actually get that details over there as well. So you can go through each of the announcement from the Ignite book of news, which is an official announcement pack for from Microsoft. Ignite has happened at the beginning of October 2022. So what I'm going to talk today is just happened few weeks ago. So it's fresh out of oven. So let's see what all things we have done in Ignite. So I have categorized them into four buckets. First one is Azure infrastructure. Now, when we talk about Azure infrastructure, there are quite a lot of announcements, but I have picked up only few from them. The first one is um, the virtual machine scale set and the Spot virtual machine capability. So you know that you can build a virtual machine scale set for the auto scale capability from an infrastructure perspective. So if you have an application hosted in a virtual machine and you want to increase the number of virtual machines while people are using their application based on their usage pattern, so you create a virtual machine scale set so that they are kind of ready for you when there is a need. They'll just be available behind a load balancer. Now, what happened here is that you can choose to enable a mixture of standard virtual machine with a Spot virtual machine in the same scale set, right? And now it is in preview, so it's not in GA. That's generally available, but it is in preview. That means most of the things are done. It is in a phase where you can think of building it um, for production. When it is GA, then you are ready with everything from an infrastructure as a code or from a deployment perspective. You can set the policy to define the percentage of allocation, which means that if you want, let's say, 50% standard VM and 50% Spot VM, or 20% standard VM and 80% Spot VM, then you can define it using Azure policy, right? And then the number of standard VM that you need to be running at any given point in time can be set also, right? So you can say that I need at least five standard VM, because at times Spot can be taken away from you, and then what happens? There is no Spot available. Will you not be able to increase the capacity? So that's why you have those numbers and the percentage available. So it's always good to have a balance between standard and Spot to make sure that it is not impacting the production uh, workload. The second point is the Azure Premium SSD and Azure Elastic SAN update. If we talk about that, what it essentially means is that when you create a virtual machine, you can choose a disk type. Either it can be a standard, premium SSD, or standard SSD, or normal HDD, that is a storage-based VHD file. Now, with the premium SSD, we now have V2, which gives Azure users the opportunity to improve the price performance of their storage. So you have certain workload which keeps on running all the time and write things into the disk, which means a lot of IOPS, data moves in and out. Then it means a lot of bandwidth. So in those cases, you can go into this version with our optimized cost, um, and then get better performance. So you don't have to tier up your VM to get more performance. You can move to premium SSD V2 and get more performance by paying the similar cost. The new disk storage offering, which you get, is ideal for apps that require high level of performance without the need of increase of storage capacity, right? So You don't need to maximize or use the other tier, just use this and then get things. This also provides the most flexible and scalable general purpose block storage in the cloud, and which enables you to run production workload like SQL Server, Oracle Database, MariaDB, SAP, Cassandra, MongoDB, Big Data, Analytics, Gaming, stateful container, and name anything which is sort of like storage dependent and does a lot of storage activity. Maybe this is the solution for you. With this, you can now provision up to 64 TB bytes storage capability with 80,000 input output operation and 1,200 megabits per second throughput on a single disk. That's the power. So you can also separate the provision disk storage capacity, IOPS, and throughput based on the workload requirement, which result into a greater flexibility when managing performance and cost. You can now store incremental snapshots for premium SSD version 2 on a standard SSD storage. So you know what you are achieving by going into this V2 or premium SSD is that when you take a snapshot, you don't need to store it in premium SSD V2. You can choose standard SSD. That way you will be able to drastically reduce the cost of your snapshots, which are not actual disk, but for backup purposes. Hence, things become much, much cheaper and easy to maintain. The next one in the infrastructure is Azure Monitor. So Azure Monitor has been there for some time, so it's not new, but we have added additional capabilities into Azure Monitor. Essentially, that means that a couple of things mainly we talk about. It has now built in a lot of AI capabilities to help you decide things a bit before it hits the threshold. It gives you predictable auto scale for VM scale sets, and this is generally available. That means you can leverage machine learning to manage and scale as your virtual machine scale sets by forecasting the overall CPU load and ensuring the scale out occurs in time to meet the demand. Azure Monitor Log Update to enable cost optimization is now generally available. Azure Monitor keeps getting the log, right? And then you have that data archive. Now you can ingest logs at a fifth of current ingestion cost and archive them up to 7 years. So that's the cost optimization you get. Now, companies need long-term storage capability, long-term retention policy, etc. So with this, you'll be able to save a lot of money. Azure Monitor Agent also brings an update. So AMA or Azure Monitor Update provides a secure, cost-effective, and simplified way to collect telemetry data from users' resources. It replaces legacy log analytics agent, also known as MMA and OMS agent. So if you are using MMA or OMS agent for collecting the log, then you should consider moving away to Azure Monitor Agent. An agent migration tool is now generally available, which provides guidance and automation to support migration from legacy components, which we mentioned earlier. AMA support for Windows 10 and 11 devices is also generally available using Windows Client Installer. So as you know that in Azure, we generally don't run Windows desktop operating system, But if you want to send your laptop's log to Azure, you can always have an agent running in the laptop, collecting the data and sending back to Azure. That's what we are talking about, which is now in GA. It also recommends alert rules, but this is in preview, by the way, it's not in GA. The AKS and Log Analytics workspace user now will be able to quickly set up Azure Monitor alerts with new alert rule recommendations. So you don't have to decide what alert you want to create. Rather, it'll tell you what alert suits you the most, right? So that's the recommendation you are going to get into this. So this is quite an exciting update. There are a couple of new features in Azure networking. And if we talk about Azure networking, it's a big thing, right? But we have announced a lot of new things in that. But I want to highlight only two things. We're not going into the express route and all this different announcement, but it is the Azure DNS private resolver. So, so Azure Domain Name System or Azure DNS is a cloud native, highly available and DevOps friendly service. What it provides? A simple zero maintenance, reliable and secure DNS service to resolve and conditionally forward DNS queries from a virtual network on premises and to other target DNS servers without the need to create and manage a custom DNS solution. So what you don't need to do is that you don't need a DNS expert, a maintainer, or an admin sort of person. This will make your DNS infrastructure work securely, privately, and seamlessly across on-premises networks and enable key hybrid networking scenarios. So that's very important because when we talk about Azure, we just don't talk about only the cloud part of Azure. We talk about what is left in on-premises, which you are still continuing to run for quite some time and will be probably maintaining it for as long as it doesn't require you to push it to cloud, right? There could be license obligation, could be scenarios like privacy, could be compliance requirement, could be a regulation requirement, etc. Right? So hybrid is the thing today. We cannot think without thinking about hybrid. So this is what it is, which will give you. And then as your public multi-access edge computing or MEC allows enterprises and developers to deliver innovative, high performance, low latency apps using operators' public 5G networks. Azure Public MEC is available with AT&T in Atlanta and Dallas. So this offers customer the unique ability to analyze data closer to where it is being captured for proactive actions and decisions, right? So that's what mainly for edge computing scenarios. Now, the next one is Windows Server benefits and features. Now, Microsoft is expanding Azure Hybrid Benefit or AHub, commonly known as AHub, which enables the software assurance or SA customers. So if you have taken a software assurance, it's generally securing your licenses for 3 years, and if there is an upgrade, you get it for free, and all these things is part of software assurance license. So if you are a customer with software assurance license, with the new Azure Hybrid Benefit for Azure Kubernetes Services and Azure Stack HCI, you can run AKS on Windows Server and Azure Stack HCI at no additional cost with Windows SA and Cloud Solution Provider subscription. So CSPs also can do that. With this, You can deploy and manage containerized Linux and Windows apps from cloud to edge with a consistent managed Kubernetes service. And with the Azure Stack HCI, you can get it at no additional cost with Windows Server Data Center software assurance license. You can modernize your existing data centers and edge infrastructure to run your virtual machine and container-based workloads on modern infrastructure with industry-leading price performance and built-in connectivity to Azure. The Windows Admin Center is now generally available in Azure Portal, which allows you to configure, troubleshoot, and perform maintenance tasks with the familiar UI. If you have used it before, you know how it looks like and how to use it. And the functionality of Windows Admin Center UI without leaving the Azure portal. So you can stay in the same portal and then manage your Windows estate. So there is a saving plan for compute which offers new pricing offering. Now let me go back here. This will allow you to save across select compute services globally by committing to spend a fixed hourly amount of $5 per hour, for example, for 1 or 3 years, right? So you decide like what is the amount you want to spend for a year or 3 years period, and what is the time you want to commit. As a customer, you can select a compute service around the world for their usage, and it is covered by the plan at a reduced price. It helps get more value from the cloud budget during the time when their usage above their hourly commitment. Users will simply be billed at as per go price. With savings automatically applying across compute usage globally, they will continue saving even as their usage needs change over the time. This plan lets you increase the value of your cloud budget, retain financial control, and optimize the cost amid increasing the cloud spend to help you do more with less. So that's the motto which our CEO has talked about in his keynote. Now, in terms of Azure applications and developer tools, I have picked a few which are exciting and important, but there are a lot more. So you just follow the Ignite Book of News. You'll get to see the list of announcements, Azure blogs, Azure announcement page will talk about that. So you will know about all of them. Now I'll touch on the Azure App Services update. What it says, Azure App Services Update, is that couple of things. One is the large SKU option. You now have 64 gigabyte, 128 gigabyte, or 256 gigabyte support for more demanding workloads with App Services Environment version 3. So if you are using App Services Environment ASE version 3, you will get these many different types of RAM sizes to choose from. And this will be available from November. So next month onwards, this will be generally available, so you will be able to use it in the production. 14 days prior notice can be given for maintenance period. So you will be able to choose a specific time window when the platform maintenance may occur. So you can say that, you know what, after the Christmas. Probably that's the slowdown period of my website. So let's do the maintenance then. So you can actually choose that by yourself. Now it supports all the latest version of .NET 7, Python 3.10, 3.11, PHP 8.1, PHP 8.2, and Node 18. That means it helps organizations run their most popular apps on Azure App Service, enabling faster time to market using the latest Azure cloud capabilities. This will be generally available again in the month of November. Go language. So it is natively now supported on Azure App Services for the first time. It's now in preview. Developers can now innovate faster using fully managed app platform services for cloud-centric web apps. Now, second important thing is the Azure Monitor features for app modernization and innovation. So it touched briefly monitoring capability in an infrastructure side of the story, but here you have that for application and cloud native applications. So managed services for Prometheus is now, it's a new managed service, by the way. So Prometheus has been a very popular solution for cloud native application, which will deliver the best of the open source ecosystem while automating the complex tasks like scaling, high availability, and long-term data retention. It can be used as a standalone within Azure Monitor or with Azure Monitor Container Insights and Azure Managed Grafana. Second, you have a Java profiling with Java Flight Recorder, JFR, which will allow you to collect data from Java Virtual Machine and Java apps for troubleshooting performance issues. You can profile on demand or automatically with configured CPU and memory triggers that can be viewed and analyzed recording with the preferred tool. So you can get the data, use it somewhere else. Third, Azure deployment environment is now generally available. So how many times you spend a lot of times deploying the whole infrastructure to be able to test your application? Uh, A lot, right? So now with this new feature, it can now take probably few hours, if not minutes. Okay. So what you basically essentially do good get is that access to the resources once they are deployed. And then Azure deployment environment, which is in preview, will enable you to quickly spin up app infrastructure with a project-based template that establishes consistency and best practices. And also it is very secure, compliant, and cost effective. Because see, what happens like a few weeks before the infrastructure is set up, just to make sure that the application can be deployed without any hassle. And while it is waiting for the application to come, you are paying the cost of the infrastructure. So now with this, you don't need it because you can do it just a click of a button. And then as soon as you are ready with application deployment, you can deploy the infrastructure and immediately deploy the application. You don't need to wait for it. And plus, it is fully secure. Don't have to worry about it. So it takes care of the compliance requirement. So everything is sort of like properly placed and designed in a sense like how this is handled. Security. I have picked up two from the security, but let me just walk you through the first one. It's a conditional confidential virtual machine option in Azure. So the confidential virtual machine has been introduced a couple of years ago, which is basically a different way of computing stuff. So the whole idea is that we have data encrypted at rest or in transit. But what happens when you bring that data in the RAM while doing the calculation? It is not encrypted. So confidential computing brings you that capability even if when it is running in the RAM, you still have a enclave, and inside that enclave you run that code of the or the application which can access the data and perform something which is highly secure and cannot be accessed by anybody. So in places like financial transactions and secure government information, etc., can leverage this confidential computing capability to make sure that it is fully secure. It is not just secure at rest or in transit, but also while doing that or accessing that data, right? So a lot of healthcare data, etc., can be considered in that. So that's what confidential computing was, and it was announced. So you can search for it and you will get a lot of nice video and articles talking about it. Now, what this new announcement around confidential computing really brings us is that uh, related to Azure Kubernetes Service. So the confidential virtual machine node pulls for AKS using confidential VM based third party processor, secure encrypted virtualization or SEV um, feature is now generally available. So this confidential node pool on AKS will enable you to a seamless lift and shift of your Linux container workload on Azure. So a lot of workload runs on Linux, uses that concept, but you can now move it into Azure as an AKS cluster, provided you have that node pool available and then deploy the workload in those nodes. Migrating to AKS means that you can now opt into highly scalable full AKS feature parity without the overhead of changing code or performance degradation. AKS is now equipped to have that confidential computing and non-confidential computing node pools in a single cluster. So not every workload may need that. So you can have that combination. So as a result, app processing sensitive data can reside in a VM level trusted execution environment or TEE node pool with a memory encryption keys generated by the chipset itself. So it's a hardware based model. So you will be able to do that. Now the confidential VM option for virtual desktop is also available. So if you are using Azure Virtual Desktop, so you can bring in this confidential computing VM for virtualization experience, right? So it ensures even if the user is running virtual desktop, it is highly secure as per the confidential computing speculation. It will be running in an enclave in a highly secure certificate-based model, and even if you are end user, you still are secure highly for things. If you are, let's say, you are a bank stuff working with a lot of digital transactions, so you would probably need that as an end user machine. You're not a normal user. Confidential VM for SQL Server on Azure Virtual Machine is also generally available, which essentially means that database can be safe when you are transacting in the database, doing calculation inside the database, right? So nobody should be able to hack your data from the RAM. Guest attestation for AMD confidential computing is also available, which means that third-party Gen AMD EPYC processor with same ACV SNP technology. With the guest attestation, you can have increased confidence that their software inside AMD confidential virtual machine runs on a hardware-based trusted execution environment. Security feature turned on. So even if you are onboarding some third-party application, you still making sure that they are not accessible by others. Neither others can access their data while they are doing some calculation. Now, the most favorite topic of mine is the Defender. So Microsoft Defender for Cloud. Now, there are a couple of announcements in Microsoft Defender for Cloud. Is one is for DevOps. It's a new solution that will provide the visibility across multiple DevOps environments to centrally manage DevOps security, strengthen the cloud resource configuration in code, and help prioritize remediation of critical issues in code across multiple pipeline and multi-cloud environment. With this preview, leading platforms like GitHub, Azure DevOps are supported, and other major DevOps platforms will be supported shortly. So if you have a hybrid DevOps environment using a lot of different DevOps tools and techniques, you can bring all those DevOps into Microsoft Defender for DevOps to constantly monitor and scan your activity and tell you where you need to make changes. Microsoft Defender for Cloud Security Posture Management, CSPM, is the solution available in preview. Will build on existing capabilities to deliver integrated insights across cloud resources, including DevOps, runtime infrastructure, and external attack surface will provide contextual risk-based information to security teams. Defender CSPM provides proactive attack path analysis built on new cloud security graph to help identify the most exploitable resources across connected workloads to help reduce recommendation noise by 99%. Microsoft Cloud Security Benchmark is a comprehensive multi-cloud security framework now generally available with Microsoft Defender for Cloud as part of the free cloud security posture management experience. This built-in benchmark maps best practices across clouds and industry frameworks, enabling security teams to drive multi-cloud security compliance. Expanded workload protection capabilities. Microsoft Defender for servers will support agentless scanning. In addition to an agent-based approach to virtual machines in Azure and AWS, Defender for Servers P2 will now provide Microsoft Defender vulnerability management premium capabilities. Microsoft Defender for Containers will expand multi-cloud threat protection with agentless scanning in AWS Elastic Container Registry. These updates are right now in preview. So a lot of announcement happened around Defender. So this is the tool going forward for any cloud solution. So keep an eye and then keep checking what else coming up in that. This is the last one that is on industry, and I picked up one major industry which is relevant for everybody today. That is Microsoft Cloud for Sustainability. What it essentially means is that it's a new feature, right? And it's now generally available, which includes an extended data model for Scope 3. So Scope 3 is the most difficult calculation for sustainability calculator for anybody because Scope 3 depends on the supplier chain model also. So you don't just talk about your own carbon emission, you also need to talk about your supply chain carbon emission. So the hardware, the electricity, the network, everything what you use, and the equipments and the plastics and the wares and the fibers, right? So all of them are the supply chains. So what is the scope there? How much emission they are making? So that's the calculation which is the most complicated and not accurate today. So we have improved on that, right? And which essentially means that it will have a more transparent reporting capability. So the emission impact dashboard for Microsoft 365 is now generally available. So this dashboard will allow you to calculate emissions associated with your organization's usage of Teams, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Exchange Online, SharePoint Online, OneDrive for Business. So it will also allows you to calculate emission savings by moving workloads to the cloud to improve reliability for environmental claims and credits. Microsoft is introducing Environmental Credit Service, a managed service to create trusted system of record, right? So you just not only are the consumer of this calculator and the report, but you are also going to contribute here for the better future, for the better environment, for our upcoming generations. And as I said again, that this is just small portion of Ignite announcements, please look for Ignite Book of News 2022, and there will be a single page document available for you to consume. Go through each of the announcement which makes a sense to you. I haven't covered a lot of areas like Power Platform, like Dynamics, Office 365, and all those things. But if you are interested in those areas of technology, I would highly encourage you to go through the Book of News. They don't only talk about the announcement, but also gives you a documentation link, which takes you further detail of about the implementation. So if you happen to show an interest in one of the announcement and want to see how to implement that in your current scenario, that will guide you to that link as well. So it is a super concise document with a lot of information together, a nice way to navigate with a table menu popping up, overflowing on the screen. So enjoy and have a great week. Thank you very much.